This is just a quick video to show you how you can laminate paper or glue two pieces of paper together. It's specifically for my Bind Your Own Books project, and I'll leave a link to that. But yeah, it's basically for people who only have printed paper and don't have a thicker paper, because really for the cover and for the end pages it's better to use a somewhat thicker paper, anything from 120 grams to 160 grams. This is just ordinary printer paper, 80 GSM, and what I'm going to do is therefore glue two sheets together. Now I've already added a coat of acrylic medium on the top. I find it's best to do that before I laminate paper together. So this is very simple, but I'm just showing you so that you'll have an option if all you have is printed paper. So what I'm going to do, I find that it works best to work with a roller and relatively thinner glue. I'm not going to do very much now. Generally one should try and do multiple things at the same time, but anyway. So I'm just adding a little bit of water to thin the glue a bit. You can get a feel for this eventually, how thick or thin glue should be. So, although we're only going to be using a small part of the paper, I'm going to do the whole A4 page. So what I do is I take my my printed page, I lay it down, and on the back you can see that the colors come through because of it got damp with the acrylic medium when I applied that. And I'm just going to go over it with a roller. You can use a brush, but I find that a roller makes it more even. Right, I'll then just take it and put it out the way. And then I'll take my plain sheet and do the same. The rule with anything like this is what you do to the one side you must do to the other. So to try and have it as even as you can. I'm then going to place my one with the image. I'm going to place that face down, and I'll take my plain page, and this can be a little tricky sometimes, and I'll position it as closely above that as I can. It's not exact, but that doesn't really matter. And then I find it best to have the image facing downwards and to go over with my clean hands, wipe over here, or else with a clean dry cloth. On the edges if it's not precise, you'll have a bit of glue, but that's okay. Okay. And just basically wipe it to make sure that there are no bubbles caught between the two sheets. If you turn it over, I wouldn't rub on here, because yeah, you don't want to mess it up, and particularly with the acrylic medium it might be more inclined to come up. What I would do now is to place it between boards. What I do now is I'll place it between two boards and some scrap paper. And then it would be best if the blank page, if the back was against a page that didn't have printing on it. And then on the top I'll put a piece of wax paper, because the acrylic medium might tend to stick, so it's always useful to use wax paper for that. So basically between some waste paper and then between boards, what I do now is I will press it briefly in my press. If you don't have a press, you could try doing that with clamps briefly, but it's not absolutely essential. You could just put some weights on there. What I've done is just quickly press it, brief press in my press, and then I'll just check it. That just basically makes sure that it's really well bonded. Just seeing that. It's okay. But if you don't have a press, having rubbed the back of it should be adequate. And then I would just leave that with a piece of wax paper over it, between boards, and put some bricks on it. If you have clamps, here's my clamp, these sorts of G clamps, you could clamp it as well at the edges, but for this that's not really necessary. And yeah, if you just put it with some bricks on it for a couple of hours, that should be fine. If it's not totally dry when it comes out, what you could do is just let it air dry after a while, and then press it again. For the cover, it doesn't really matter if it's not absolutely flat. So if you wanted to hang it up and let it dry, that wouldn't matter. For the end pages, it's better if they stay flat. And the reason we do two pieces of paper, and also the reason why you should put the glue on both sides of the paper, is that you don't want one side to pull more than the other side. So hopefully it will be reasonably flat at the end, but it doesn't really matter for the cover. So I'm just going to leave this under some weights. Okay, and this is now dry. It's our two pages laminated together. For the cover, you really don't need to do anything more. You can just use it as you would use another piece that you'd printed and coated. If it were end pages that you've done it, you can see that they're slightly, not entirely flat. So if they were end pages, you could press them between boards as much as you can. Although even for that, when you actually make the book, they will get pressed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But certainly for the cover, you don't need to. This is now ready to be used.